rate working. And if anyone can make it 100% work, not work, slide something and knows which one it is, let me know. I'll buy you lunch. David, we good? All right. Oh, Kevin, if you need a minute, we can.
We just start.
Okay.
Things are running.
Okay. All right. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to the lovely, we're in Mountain View, right? I know Sunnyvale, the line somewhere close, I think. Not actually sure. My name is Ron Petty. I will be presenting. As it says here, thanks to the Google Visitor Experience and the team. Got Gio, take a bow. We've got the friends out front for allowing us to do things like this. All right, so what are we doing? Through a few iterations, we have the human-machine dance, the coding, evolving future. What this is an attempt at is probably in the end to think a little further into the future. What is tech getting us to and what it might not get us to. But along the way, look at some of the historical paths that got us through all this. Tried to pick a timeline. I went with about 250 years. You could always go back further, right? There's always something at some point. But just trying to relate it to kind of modern computing practices. And so what I would hope is while there's going to be some unfortunate PowerPoint of just some bullet points, there's other graphs and more interesting things. I would encourage you, if you have thoughts or comments along the way, or if you know something about some technology that I do not know or others do not know, please share. So again, the theme is there's been good and bad all along. Some of it's been bad for society. Some of it's just been bad for productivity, right? There's some of it's been good. So we just want to kind of highlight all these things over the years as best that we can in the couple hours that we have. There's some other things I would like to relate it to. One is the consolidation of knowledge, right? So part of why all this, I think, by the way, I am not a PhD or anything, so you can just ignore me. But I think the consolidation of knowledge through certain time periods really helped with things. I think, of course, the electrification of the world, precision tooling, right? All these things kind of came together at a certain point, and then magic happened, right? Some people saw the magic before others. And, if I could ever go back in the DeLorean, I would like to go to some of those labs, a couple hundred years ago just to see the one little spark and someone yell and then forget about it and then realize that would have changed the world if they had just could put two and two together, right, at that moment. There's been some interesting things along the way. Anyway, this is me. Sorry, I guess the formatting may be off a little here and there. It is on Google Docs, and I'll share that. But this is PowerPoint as of an hour ago, just because make sure we had the internet. I am with some local chapters of all these efforts. Currently the chair of the Internet Society and the ACM. That's why you see some signs around here. Here's some of the events that we put on. We have members from these groups, the ACM, IEEE, Internet Society. I like to keep, even though this is a more general talk, this isn't necessarily per any group per se, but all these groups have been part of this, right? And they're shepherding the stuff into the future. So please, if you just want to meet some people from the group, we have a lot of members here from all these groups. And then, if you're looking for work, if you're looking just to meet interesting people, please, meet and greet each other along the way as well. All right. So, of all the, again, I picked a lot of this, so if others have other ideas that represent concepts, please just jump on in. So what we see here is basic, and the main point is from 48 years ago, right? This is GitHub, right, which is modern, right? Even though we were just debating how modern with all this wasted space, like why have monitors at all if we're only going to put stuff right here? But this to me just, this was making the rounds on, the nerd news. And it just was a good reminder to me, like, BASIC doesn't feel that old. And it depends on who you ask, is 48 years old or not, right? Like, in the grand scheme of computing as we know it, I'd argue this is still pretty early on, right? The vast majority of coders have never even touched BASIC at this point. 10 years ago, maybe that wasn't the case, right? So it's just a good reminder, like, there's some interesting tech. And of course, this, correct me if I'm wrong, if someone knows, this came out of Dartmouth originally, right? So, I love those stories, right? And you should kind of look at the pros and cons. There's great stories about Dartmouth doing this, and then even back then, the time-sharing systems development, right? All back in the late 50s, 60s, 70s kind of era, right? So this is version 1.1, so who knows when 1.0 came out and what came before that. But nonetheless, getting on 50 years. And this is actually something to think about. There's other stories. We'll see a book later actually about energy. And one of the premises of that book is, when is technology like kind of picked up by society? And that book is mainly around energy, but it has knock-on effects to everything else. His point was about every 50 years is when tech really makes another jump. And there's all other kinds of views of this too, but that one I had heard of, but in the context of the evolution of energy systems, and then of course the evolution of the precision instruments, which led to precision engineering, which led to computers and all these other things. If you actually look at other these kind of perspectives, you see these trends, and it makes it kind of interesting. Then you have to stop and think, well, why, right? So some of it's cultural, some of it's just sheer luck, right? We'll see some of these trends as we go on. So if BASIC is kind of a step back, this is just trying to show a step forward. This is Cloudflare's AI metering measure website. It goes on and on and on and on. I won't jump around. It's actually quite cool. So, they're basically showing a variety of stats on all the big LLM providers and what they're doing. And you can see just a couple of things here, really. The growth of AI kind of services, right? And then you can rank order them, right? So maybe just real quick, does anyone here not know what Cloudflare does?
I've heard it, I know.
Okay. All right, someone here can give us an elevator pitch on CDNs? Devin, do you want? What does CDN stand for?
Controlled delivery.
Yeah, so controlled delivery, content delivery. Hey, Dave, can I get the mic? Just. Thank you. By the way, the ACM has got my back. And for $50, it can have your back too. So yeah, CDN is.
So content delivery network, I would explain it as just a method of getting content to users in their more regional areas. Would that be correct?
That's right.
More faster, more streamlined content delivery rather than just only coming from one source or one server. It's more spread out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
A distributed cache.
yeah.
Right.
Cache.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a commercial reverse proxy.
Yes. Double. No, yes, or yes, no. Yes. Three rights and a left equals a left. Yeah. So again, this is ignoring AI. CDNs did a very helpful purpose, but it can also be harmful, right? So what's an example of forgetting even AI, why could CDNs be harmful?
Like a singular point of failure, maybe?
Yes, but not because they're singular points of failure. So CDNs are distributed, all their systems, but they're operated by someone. And that someone could say, what just happened? I think it's the temperature. Somebody, not saying Cloudflare by any stretch, they could just say no and turn it off, right? And that will disrupt traffic. And we'll just say this has happened, right, around the world. So again, even though that tech is great, but more to the point, AI is growing. So much so, it's affecting the traffic of the internet. And things like Cloudflare would care about that. Okay? So we'll be touching on tools and things all through all these periods of time. Okay, so again, kind of the premise of this talk is just to get all of us thinking. I put a reminder here for myself to shut up and let you think for a moment. So what do you think we've gained or lost regarding coding related any tech through the years?
High-level languages.
Good or bad?
Good.
Good, all right. Any other takers on the other side of that? Anybody think higher level is bad?
I think it's very good, but you're giving up control at the expense of comfort or ease of use.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, good, yes?
Game programmer, you give up performance.
Yep, so game programming, give up performance. What high level languages?
More tools
More tools?
to make coding effective.
Yeah, so just more tools to make our lives, again, like I mean, that's falls in that kind of camp as well. Yes?
Lost understanding of the low level and ability to understand the low level.
Yeah, so a negative is losing low level knowledge and experience. Yep.
Privacy.
Loss of privacy or gaining. Which way?
Pardon?
Loss or gain of privacy?
Lost privacy.
All right, loss of privacy.
You got 5 cameras in here.
Yeah. We're practicing. We have to do it more than once. But fair point for sure. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Loss of ability to fine-tune and optimize on a case-specific matter.
Yeah, so lots of controllability at a detailed level. Yes.
It provides like powerful tools to bad actors as well.
Say it one more time.
It provides like powerful tools to our bad actors.
Yeah. So we've weaponized, right? We've weaponized bad people, right? There's always one snarky comment if I teach security classes I bring up. Like it's always about tech and all these things. And I just like to remind people, we wouldn't be here if people had good parents, right? Because you wouldn't raise a jerk of a kid who went and hacked people, right? There's other reasons for security, but bad actors is one. Yes? Yeah, better collaboration for sure. Internet gets some credit for that. All right. Yeah, so lots of pros and cons. What was some pros and cons in 1804?
You actually had to go to the door and
That's right. No next door alarm. That's right. What about equations?
Engines and solving differential equations.
Yeah, we started, we'll say mechanical calculating devices, right? That was just to say it. We'll see a little bit on this. The loom, right? Weaving, right? That's kind of the credit for, again, it's not even 1804. There was even earlier things, even 50, 60 years before that used punch cards, right? And so again, the stacking of punch cards, the automation of it. Still, sometimes humans were involved, of course, but that was a disruptive force. But that was a technology that led a lot to what we see going on today. All right, so here's some of the things. Some of you have already mentioned. This is just some that I've kind of noodled over, so we can see it's pretty much what everyone's been saying. But collaboration is a good one. So yeah, I think it's abstraction. If I had to genericize these lists, right? We've made things more and more generic, and that's been good and bad, right? I think if I paraphrase some of this, just my view, I think we're overly making things too complicated. I think there's plenty of great abstraction that did lots of great things, especially because the point of abstraction, you don't need to know everything below it. But we now have these systems that are incomprehensible, right? And that goes even to the extreme of like formal proving methods and things like that, where you have a proof that's not measured in terms in algebra, measured in how fat it is in bytes, right? My proof is 20 gigabytes, right? Like what does that even mean, right? Like it's a lot of text that you have to go through. So I think the layers of the onion are getting a little bit too much. I'm not trying to be negative, but I think just as a preview, in the end, I think a lot of the next generation tech, in my take, is going to be to de-onion the tech stack. I think that's what is going to be needed to go further, faster. Yes?
Observation slash question, you're saying the tools, the problems are getting harder. You're absolutely right in most cases, I believe. I think in some cases, is it really the tools getting more complicated, or is it that we've run out of simple problems to solve?
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, so the kind of observation is the tools more complex or the problems more complex, or some combination of,
We've already
yeah.
solved the simple ones.
That's it, yes. I don't think there's any shortage of problems. We're still stuck on this rock, right? Like, there's plenty to do, plenty more tools to make. I'm agree with you on the sentiment, but I do think what used to be make a binary, put it on a web server, is now binary, some templating language, like you got all these layers, and then it still crashes, right? Like, what was the point of all that?
I think an important factor that belongs in the loss category is that it's taking power away from individuals. And I don't necessarily mean that in the political sense. For example, there's a, I can't think what you call it, section of China anyways, where there's cameras everywhere. And every body is computerized. And if you jaywalk, you lose so many points. If you rob a bank, you lose a lot of points.
Right.
And at the same time, if you help a little old lady across the street, you get more points. And those points control how far you're able to go. Can you leave your hometown? Can you leave your home section, and can you go all over China? Or potentially, can you even leave China? And to give an example, they train engineers. They didn't want them on their cell phones, so they have to wear a hat, and that hat can tell when they're not focused on the tracks ahead, and it gives them a warning, and of course they lose points. And I'm not trying to make a great political thing out of it, but the person who controls that suddenly has a lot of power. And if we don't have
Agreed.
a balance of power, things could get really crazy in just literally 5 or 10 years.
Agree. Oh, thank you. Do you always go to parties with punch cards? Check it out.
Especially for this one.
Thank you. We'll see that in a moment. Great point. Yeah, so there's big scary words for this political terms for command and control. Yeah, technology can be both good and bad. So that's a great observation.
Yeah, one more I'll add to it is that they give workers promotions based, again, everybody's wearing a hat. I'll just speak louder.
Yeah.
Everybody, for example, in a factory, wears a hat, and they're able to determine how focused or unfocused the person is. And from that, they deduct, if you're focused, then you're enjoying your work. If you're not focused, you're not enjoying your work. And if you're straining too hard, you're not promotion material. So if you're happy and focused, you're going to get a promotion.
Changing behaviors. All right. Thank you. Okay, so we've got some thoughts, good and bad. So how does this actually kind of happen over time? So I mentioned before that some people view, especially in the energy space, which again we'll show you some books on this later, that it could be a 50-year horizon between the invention of something new and then the uptake. But why 50 years, right? So there's a whole variety of opinions on why this could be, and some of them include these components, right? So again, cultural dispersion is kind of the generic term to describe just any transitioning of this in a technology sense, right? Just as some examples, right? The values and vision, right? So societies that value rationalism, progress, and problem solving. An example of this was in World War II, for one reason or another, military or civil society, computers, nuclear energy, and space technologies, right? So there's a huge investment. Ultimately, they didn't want to lose that investment, so it was kind of forced transitioned, right? People got excited with those big projects, landing on the moon, things like that. And so one could argue, do we have these kinds of large-scale events since then? Any large tech things come to mind? So we haven't been to the moon in a while. Come on.
Drone warfare.
That is definitely having a recent impact for sure. So drone warfare. Any other kind of large single events come to mind? Yeah, that's one I would. LLMs would be one in recent years. I think we'll have maybe early, but I think a lasting impact here. What else?
I think the current world is like invisible or different from ever before. Like the workforce environment, we always have the young graduate students or the junior professionals hard to land in a corporate environment. So this is a battle between the human-powered, white-collar work versus the AI work. A lot of CEOs in Silicon Valley mentioned that if you can let the AI do the work, you will not hire. So this is a new type of war, I would say.
Yes, war for career at this point, right? Okay, so that's again one area is these big investments, right? Trust and legitimacy. So innovations become local solutions and eventually become global solutions. So some examples of this was computers started to grow in different locations, but could argue that they didn't really become popular until microcomputers, something besides just spreadsheets, right? Then there's a huge new markets, right? It's just one example. Another one is nuclear power. So depends on who you ask, but a lot of scientists will say that nuclear power is still misunderstood regarding its risks. It is generally in scientific circles, it is considered much less risk than what the standard public would perceive it to be, right? So those misconceptions have kept it from becoming, in theory, the Malthusian kind of way of the world back after World War II, really influenced what people think and how policy is made, and thus has stalled the use of nuclear power. Okay, so again, that's the trust and legitimacy. Do we believe it's safe? Would we use it? Is there utility? Is there a legitimate use for that? Another take on the dispersion here is work practices and education. So embracing cultures of math and tinkering push boundaries. Some examples of this are just here in the Bay, right? We got hacker mentality here. Russia gets a lot of credit for we'll say for math as a culture, but even there, just as a point of contention, sounds good. Let's all get good at math. And then for some reason, just part of how the society operates, they still choose not to take full advantage of that. And I'm not saying everybody's got to be a mathematician, but there's enough pushback there that's been documented. So again, society changes, and then this tinkering is what leads to tech, right? There's been plenty of interesting things out of Russia too, but that's the kind of point here. So let me ask you this: do you feel we have a tinkering mentality today? You could take a stand.
It's harder with BGAs than it was with old. It's much harder with BGA ICs than what things you could solder yourself and wire up yourself.
Right. Yeah, so less control.
So I want to add to your list, and I want to put a new bullet point, which I would call marketing and sponsorship, so that when you have a large commercial entity, let's say Microsoft, for example, they're able to bring Windows to the world and make it disperse in a way that some of these homegrown things did not disperse. And there are examples Television is another example. It took RCA to come along a decade after the invention of the TV to get it out there into the world because they had the money and the resources to make people aware of it. And so I think that the next time you do that slide, I would suggest that as
The force of the
topic.
market or
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah, right. It's not the force of the market is both ways.
Yeah.
Customers reject things like PL1, and customers accept things like GPT. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, very good. All right. Anyone thoughts? Hello?
Yeah, I think compared to when I first came to the Valley, I think that the sort of innovative hacking kind of culture's actually gone down quite a bit. And I think it's probably the rise of a lot of the mega FANG corporations that have sort of sucked a lot of the creativity out of just the general environment. But
I'd agree. Yes?
I'd actually argue the opposite. I think it's actually even higher than it was ever before. I mean, especially with the advent of GitHub, I think it's easier to share and collaborate than ever. I mean, there's tons of open source software nowadays that you just play and tinker with and just for fun, right?
Yep. There is a lot.
And very useful.
Yeah.
Software as well.
I would argue they're both correct.
Yes,
I think there's, at the grassroots level, I think you're absolutely right. There's definitely more of it. But at the top-down level, I think it's being, let's call it disencouraged. And of course, there's all the macroeconomic effects. It's harder to arise when there's the big corporate players, but I think that's tangential.
Very good.
There's also interesting like push and pull happening right now in education about the use of LLMs or where people are talking about like it's going to take away reasoning from kids and trying to build ability to think on their own. But there is also push for people trying to incorporate LLMs into education because that's where the world is moving right now. We are using LLMs on day-to-day basis in every field right now. So there's like some nice dynamics happening happening there as well.
Yeah, use of new tech. Very good. All right, so yeah, some thoughts there. Just keep things moving. Institution and incentives, maybe some marketing here. Without institutional support to support these ideas, right? Just kind of mentioned, consumers will take something or not. Bigger agencies will push things or not, right? So again, some of these larger projects can't happen without that market. Narratives and imagination. This is important. If nobody tells the story, no one knows it's happening, right? Like Michael Faraday, the one just breaks my heart. Faraday, magnetism, electricity, had his experiment. His lab is gone. Like, why? Because no one talked about it, right? It just like the few people at the society did. And I know it's just a little piece, one little technical piece of work done, but nonetheless, no one was there to kind of convey that till years later, before then it became passed into legend, basically, at this point. But who's going to tell the story now, right? The story so far seems to be all about loom automation and Boolean algebra and, kind of leading up to World War II, and that's the story I think most people have been told, and maybe that just is the story, right? But as probably most of us could probably guess, there's lots of localized versions of these things, alternate paths. Then, of course, the fun part is there's probably alternate realities that could have happened, right? So what do we think is going to happen now? Like, what's the story now? We see, what's the name of the company, the blood drop lady? What's that? Theranos, yes, Theranos. Now they got a Netflix deal. Like, maybe that's a good thing for them, I don't know. But like, what's the story now? AI, what else? Is there any other stories here we're missing?
Life extension.
Yeah, life extension, good one.
Google started a company to do that.
Yeah,
Calico.
Calico.
California Life Company.
Right.
And if you notice that in the dog food, they're saying big step. Google created a company called Calico, California Life Company. and they gave them $1.5 billion to do nothing but pure research into life expectancy. And the country of Saudi Arabia, which is basically the prince, donated another 1.5 billion. So if you know much about medical research, they're going to find some stuff. But if you notice in the dog food ads now, a couple of the companies say that their food extends the life of your dog by 2 to 3 years. And in fact, it's because they have a medication now that veterinarians can prescribe and use that extends the life of dogs 2 to 3 years. So it's knocking on the door. And according to their preliminary research, before they started Calico, it should be here, stop aging in about 4 years and 14 years to turn it around, which is going to really change society. Think about pensions and things like that.
That'll change a few things for sure. Yeah, so I heard crypto. That's a huge story. Anything interesting in crypto lately? I mean, it's interesting, but like anything super interesting that the majority may not be aware of? Blockchain. Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I think a big thing that's happened recently, at least in the area of crypto, is the institutional adoption in like a lot of Fortune 500 or just companies within the S&P 500 that are starting to adopt as a treasury strategy, and also just regulatory clarity, like the Genius and the Clarity Act, I think, for stable coins and what is and isn't a security.
So are we losing the promise of decentralization?
I would argue a little bit, yes. But at the same time, I think it also is required for adoption. If without the regulatory, I think, clarity.
That is one of the core premises, I think, of Wall Street, is without the group, the teaming up.
Sorry, I can talk about crypto. Can people who have the mic talk much louder?
Because once you get on, you want to be quiet. But
your voice, we cannot hear you back.
yeah, for sure. All right, crypto, what else was also evolving now, someone mentioned?
The biggest challenge you have is the last two we left for last. And by the way, the gentleman bought dog food. Give me the brand. I want to extend my life. Your narratives and imagination and your ethics and social norms. Yeah. In some part, half of this group in this room, we all came, my language is not English. Many people here's language is not English, with different cultural backgrounds. In some cultures, I'll use the Middle East, it's glorified where someone committed suicide is a hero and martyr. The victims believe it's evil, but the perpetrators believe it's great. How do you look at that narrative imagination, ethics, and social norms of being layered to where, as Hal said, there's some sort of monitor without us getting killed?
Right. Thanks. Yeah, so maybe even going back to the command and control comments, right? Just what is, here now we're talking about individuals and what is important to them or not. I can't really comment there, but I appreciate the concern for here. What this point, just to go with the point here, this just talking about AI, like what's, as a society, what might we take about tech, right? So in the case of Europe, much, I don't know if defensive is the right word, but more, protection oriented versus Japan. And I don't know if this is totally true, but in Japan, the use of copyright is much more loose as far as training AI. Basically, if you read in the US media, it's basically wide open, right? You just take what you want, do what you want. So basically just a complete different shift on the acceptance of data in this technology. Along with, beyond AI, climate, what people view about this has changed over time. Go back to nuclear power. If we have an answer, actually this morning I heard of an alternative one here, somebody who's actually for green energy, not for nuclear, but not for the reason normally stated. They said don't do nuclear because it's too expensive. They're like, we already have one nuclear machine going and we only need it, and that's the sun. They're like, just build solar, and at least for the next few, their point was, is for the next few years, what we need could be done by solar and things like that. Yes, long term we want tiny, clean nukes, but part of that is, will society change its views on things, right? And when it comes to drone warfare, cultures that have different beliefs, yeah, this is not going to get settled here or anytime soon. I wish I had something better to say on that, but I don't. All right. So some trends, just to kind of pick one that's just in the news now, is job hiring. So this is actually some thoughts around, I just went through Reddit and Hacker News and just went around just trying to pick up themes of like, what are people saying about hiring? And a lot of the conversations tend to be kind of a generational based. Pick your two generations, it doesn't matter, right? Here we're saying X and Z, but the point is each generation has some different positions on things, different pros and cons. And if we just kind of run through this, this first point here, right? AI is replacing Gen Z. Why? Because the skills that Gen X has is harder to automate. Now, of course, does that mean Gen X is safe? No, it just means they'll be next, right? In theory, right? So, bummer for Gen Z, right? But what does that actually mean, and is it actually happening? So what do you think? Are we really losing out?
It's decidedly happening. Entry level, programming work is much harder to find now. People are having trouble getting jobs even with like a master's degree. It's happening.
Mm-hmm. Anyone here from we'll say programming industries have thoughts on this? Like finance or, I saw you, yeah?
I used to be engineering, so I'm still biased, but I think the way this is going to pan out how it panned out before, right? Where nobody got replaced just because Jira came about. You saw more project management kind of roles.
We got more jobs.
Exactly. So I think this sentiment right now is, what are those new jobs? So because nobody knows what those new jobs are, everyone's kind of in that land of unknown and fearful. So there's issues now, but probably 2 years from now, if you stick around, all these tools are not going to be as good, and that's when they start hiring again. But yeah, it's definitely a low point now, but it's going to go higher from here.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Thoughts? All right. So, are there more jobs that we just don't have qualified people for? I'm sure DeepMind would love to hire you if you knew how to do 3D crystallography, X-ray stuff, but how easy it is to learn that, right? There's probably plenty of jobs, but the level of skills and experience is definitely getting more complicated, harder to get. And unfortunately for those earlier in their career, you're really starting to miss out on those learning opportunities, I would think.
There's a lot of jobs at the bottom, too. They don't pay well, and people don't want to do them, but there's a huge demand for people to do caretaking work for seniors and disabled people. They're very hard to find because people don't want to do it because it doesn't pay well and it's pretty bad work. So I think that the jobs are split between really high-level skills that are hard to learn and very low-paying jobs nobody wants to do.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think new type of jobs will come, but the managers hiring companies are waiting and seeing what's
necessary.
the new nature of jobs are going to be. Right. But definitely there's hiring freeze because people don't know how it's going to evolve.
Very good. Thank you.
I think we always say generation X, Y, Z. I think looking at the individual, I think whoever have the personal traits to look at nuance, have a higher channel capacity, looking at the nuance, they are always going to thrive. Even though, there are large of the AI capacities coming into the market, because AI, as we all know, it's pattern recognition based. But if it's highly, highly customized, like the lady just mentioned about, senior caring, right? Personal touch on top of it, that's still not replaceable, at least at this moment.
Agree. All right. All right, let's move on here. Thank you very much for that. Another take that's very common out there is the reduction of education resources through the COVID years. And supposedly we're still paying for that today and for the foreseeable future. So I'll just say on a personal note, my daughter was 4th grade when it happened, and we were out of school, like not in school, for a year and a half. And that's San Francisco, where science is supreme, supposedly, right? And unlimited resources, yet school was gone. Tried virtual, and again, you would kind of take it for granted. You would think, oh, San Francisco, of course everybody knows how to use Zoom and has all these cool movie studios at home, right? No, teachers would make a 5-minute video and say, we'll see you tomorrow, right? Like, I'm sure others had different experiences, but I will say there was definitely a reduction of resources to help children learn during this point. And then, of course, depending on your age, it would affect you in different ways, right? If you were 18, you'd expect to go to prom. And now there's no prom, right? It may not seem like a big deal, but it's like something hundreds of millions of other people did, and now you don't, right? So what kind of impact is that going to have on those people? So any thoughts on this?
Actually, one of my friends that he has applied for the program in the United States, and because of the pandemic, that he prepared for almost 1 year to get the chance to come here. But actually, because the pandemic, that government just waive all the chance and say, oh, you have to, because the pandemic, you cannot go, and he cannot even get the visa. So even at that moment, he don't know. He usually that the age that we are same, we apply for the job, but because he applied for that program, so he cannot do anything at that moment, and he feel like frustrated and don't know what to do next.
Yeah, missed out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sad for him.
I would also argue that there's a kind of a perfect storm of a few things that happened. I think that led to a lot of the tech hiring issues, whereas things like geopolitical risks, like high interest rates, COVID. So it's just, and AI in general. I think all those together kind of really impacted it more than I think it normally would have if it was just AI alone.
Yeah, that's right. The perfect storm.
There's also the matter of the political decisions being made. Companies are unable to decide what they're going to do when they don't know what they're going to have to pay for their goods that they're importing. They don't know how to price their products. They don't know how to tell you what their earnings are going to be. And so a lot of companies are just sitting tight, and we've seen that in a reduction in hiring throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't plan. Very good. All right. All right, so counterpoint to some of this, Gen Z is more efficient with AI, right? So you'll hear about what they can't do because of AI taking the job, and then you'll hear what they can do because they know how to use AI maybe better than other generations. True? False? False? Yeah, all the non...
Better does not equate to more efficient. Spending more time and effort on, and putting more time and effort into something does not make you more efficient, might make you less so.
Yes, just doing it doesn't mean you're doing it well.
There's more AI does not mean there's more efficient.
Yeah, not always about efficiency. I will just again, just as a personal example, we just hired a gentleman at my day job, younger guy, and he's not got a traditional computer science background like myself, but everything he does, he came from economics and he switched once ChatGPT came out and just totally dove in to doing AI tooling, like visualization stuff. He's absolutely incredible. And can you explain how it is really, the theory and all these things under it? I mean, he's definitely trying to learn all the things, but you could tell there's those gaps. And so will he, if something goes wrong, could he fix a very complicated system? Maybe, maybe not. Only time will tell. But yeah, that's the kind of things we look out for. It's like, so we hired him even though without that formal background, because we thought we would learn. Like we thought because we're a small company, we're like, maybe we're myopic, right? We operate a certain way. Let's just take a chance. Maybe he'll teach us something new, but we also know to look out for, we already been hurt by that before. We could teach him something too.
We hired a whiz kid without a degree too when we were starting out. It turned out to be a good decision. I hope yours is as well.
Yes.
I think there's a little hook in there though too, because to use AI, you have to have I'm not sure the right term, but I'll say a higher level of sophistication or education. You can't, you can write a program in AI, okay, but if you don't know exactly how to use it or why you need it, or, somebody in that company has to make a decision that we need this piece of software. And a kid out of college can't do that. And so somewhere in there, there's a jump.
That's right. I would agree with that.
And hopefully we can overcome that.
Mm-hmm. That means Gen X still has a job. All right. Some other things I can't comment because I'm not Gen Z. There's a statement that you see float around. Basically, we don't want all the money to go to the boss. Right? So they're less inclined. I don't know what this translates into. Maybe you're more like willing to take lesser, steady paying jobs to try new experiences and have a life more so than just give it all up to the proverbial man. And again, it's not obviously true for everybody. And then, of course, there's the more needling of statements of like your parents are paying for it. So the people beyond Gen X pay for all these activities and all the Instagrammers, or they're using credit cards, right? So again, don't want to generalize too much, but when you look at all these threads of conversations, these are the kind of ranges of arguments that I have seen, right? To the point of experience, what can AI do? A lot of engineers, again, speaking on just the tech side of the house, kind of know what the evolution from cog-sci, the perceptron, right? What kind of leads to things. Maybe you know what BM25 is, right? There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that led to things like we see in convolutional neural networks and LLMs and transformers and everything in between. Obviously, without that learning experience, without that background, you're not going to know anything about these things. And do you need to know, right? Again, there's always some level that you can get by without, but right now, it's unclear. Maybe reorder these. Loyalty both ways. Mentioned earlier about cheap capital, right, is gone, right? So now we can't just hire anybody, even if they don't have experience, right? We need people with experience because we can't afford it.
But on the other hand, you have cheaper prototyping, 3D printing tools, and fundraising, GoFundMe and whatnot.
Yes.
Tools, both financial and technical, to compensate for
That's right.
lack of cheap capital.
Right. All right. So again, this slide here was really just, again, like what's a problem of our age? One could be just getting a job, right? All right. So jumping back, let's get back to maybe just the tactical here. Oh yes, sir. Sorry. Please. Oh, no mention of millenniums? No, millennials.
That's one part. And secondly, those who have been in this industry for long have been here before at a different pace. You can replace AI with internet in this slide, and that applies. Just the pace is higher now. Right? You can say millennials are more efficient with internet than baby boomers or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
It's just the pace and the social media or whatever the access to the information or information AI is another tool, but much more efficient
Mm-hmm.
than that.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. So on the first point, millennials didn't just pick some generations that are near each other. That, yeah, no particular reason to dodge them.
Yeah, and some of these points probably apply to us in Bay Area, not necessarily outside, like cheap capital gone.
That's right.
Speed of
Yep.
development, like break things, move fast, whatever. All those things don't apply to the normal human beings outside of Bay Area. So that's another perspective.
That's right. Regional
The Bay
influence
Area,
of things.
we can-
That's
we
right.
can discuss a lot about these things.
Yeah.
Past
Good point.
prototypes or whatever you want to do. Right?
Yeah. Thank you. Good points. All right. So some history. All right. Who's on the left?
Ada Lovelace?
Yeah. All right. Who's on the right?
That's a futurist.
Yes. You got it. Yeah. Ray Kurzweil. All right. Yeah. So why are they here? All right. So I actually got lucky once. I was in London and I was lost, and I was lucky lost. I turned around and there's a plaque that says she used to live here. And I was like, yes, nerd points. I get it. My wife could care less what I was doing. Okay, so what is she? We'll get to her in a moment. So this is step back in time. All right, so what this is just trying to remind us of is something back in the 1820s, 1830s, 1840s, and beyond. Charles Babbage came up with the differential engine, the analytical engine, also called the computational engines, was the more generic society term for these things. And these are machines to, we'll just say do math, right? They weren't the first, right? Pascal and what's his name? Ramon Null and others, even centuries before had attempted at things like this. But this was probably the most featureful, specced out kind of system, even though it was not built in his time. Right? And so this, just to get some time on these things, got my notes here. So this paper came out in, make sure I get the right.
1943.
Yeah, 43. And the first paper that it references is from 1822, when Babbage had written to Sir Humphrey Davies about the differential engine, right? So you don't just go to the society, I mean, I guess you could, and say, hey, here's my paper, read it. I mean, maybe they did back then, but that means he was thinking about it before 1822, right? So just to give you an idea like how far back some of this goes, and then of course the loom, the Jacquard loom as related to these things was in 1804, 1805. So again, there was interesting work being done at this time. And a lot of people see these papers, but the references in them go back even earlier. So one of the things in that paper was from Ada Lovelace, which is what's called Note G. So it's a variety of things that she was working on. But one is the claim that she's the first programmer because of this. But what's less known is her notes basically described a Turing-complete system. And that's arguably the more important thing that's like completely just never mentioned. So aspects of what does it mean to be Turing-complete, right? So having loops, right? If you just kind of simplify it, having loops. Well, you couldn't have loops with the current form of the analytical engine without a human being involved in resetting it. So technically that's a loop, the human just got to keep doing whatever to loop it. I think most people would say, no, humans can't be doing that. The system has to do it, right? So what she described would lead to a non-human, not to use an AI pun, human in the loop to make the loop actually happen. Another one is structured control flow, if and else, right? Prior to that, it was really just do the thing, no options, to branch out. So there were a couple of these things that led to discussions of compilers, right? Symbolic representation. She wasn't the first, right? There was symbolic representation talked about 1,000 years ago, right? But by putting it in the context of a machine and putting all these things together, it basically sums up what effectively is a Turing machine, which would not come for 90 years. Another piece here was just the separation of data and program, right? The stored program. That even though, again, it wasn't fully implemented, it was alluded to. And that's, again, just even ignoring her, just all these people's work at that period of time, right? This is 1840.
Yeah, I thought for fun and for a hobby, I'd write a compiler for the analytical engine for the modern programming language.
Please come up.
Turns out you can't. So it can't do relocatable code and stack frames and things like that. So.
Yes, not totally featureful, but awesome. Well, when you're ready to demo, come on up. Yes. But again, like the goal here is, people thought of things. Well, let me ask you this: why didn't we have it? Why didn't they build it? I mean, they were trying to build it, but why did it not succeed?
Too many little parts.
Yes. Basically, precision engineering was, I wish I had dug this up. There's a video on YouTube about how to make a flat surface. Anyone seen this? It's mind-boggling. Hours of these guys talking how to make a flat surface. They're like, until people could recreate flat surfaces, you couldn't do any precision anything. And it turned out it was super simple. They're like, it was something like you take two rocks and you go like that, and they get smoother, but they don't get flat. One of them will concave, right? And the other one will be convex. But if you do three, it all of a sudden becomes flat. And it's like, do what now? Like, that's all it took? Like, what were the cavemen doing? Like, they should have figured that out, right? Like, what else are you doing in the cave other than banging rocks, right? Like, we should have had precision spears, I guess, millennium ago. But that's one of the reasons attributed. All right. Well, eventually we did get precision instrumentation, and thus we ended up with transistors and things like this. So this book came out back in the 90s, I guess. And what is the singularity? So the singularity, got a better slide here. All right, so in general, you could probably already guess what this is referring to. This is a representation. The copyright stuff is in the notes, which you'll get if you download the slides. This is a representation of the singularity about where effectively it becomes indistinguishable between humans and tech, is one way to think about it. Another view of this is that we can make predictions, or we can control the future, right? We have enough technology that we can live forever and all these kinds of things. Other people think that technology is going to get so evolved, we can't actually use it to predict anything because we won't be in control anymore. So there's different takes on this, of course. So if you have not read The Singularity is Near, I read it many, many years ago. I enjoyed it. Anyone else read it? If not, I would highly recommend it. It's actually free online now. If you want a big book, it's a good read, though. And it holds up, I think. So his current, if I remember correct, he predicted Ray Kurzweil in 2040 is when what effective, it's not called that, but what AGI will happen, according to him. And I don't know, he might be right, and we'll see. Of course, related to the progression here, you actually have like tech, right? So here we have Moore's law in action. What's some other laws? Anyone remember some other exponential things out there? I know there's other charts for things. I just can't think of any off the top of my head now. But what do we think? Are we going to keep going with this, with Moore's law, or what else is going to happen?
There are limits.
Yes, there are limits. So what are we down to? 3 nanometers? Yes.
I can't remember the source, but I believe someone projected that according to our energy use, in 300 years we will producing more energy than the sun, or you're consuming more energy than the sun.
Oh, all right, yeah, so 300 years, we're going to be popping more popcorn than the sun. Yeah, yeah. All right, well, what's the problem, a problem with Moore's Law? Like, what doesn't it capture now? Like, this was originally what?
Number of transistors doubling every year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, so now what do we have to double? So if it's not transistors that are going to keep the party going. Flops, so GPUs stuff?
The limitation in hardware, something like nano.
Yeah. So hardware, what's
Yeah,
good and
hardware
bad?
limitation. So we have to come up with new, or we have to explore the new hardware.
So distributed computing, can we go infinite on the number of CPUs?
Well, also micro level to nano level computing hardware, something.
Yeah, improving there. Tech stack,
I
3D.
think, right. There's a energy limitation as well, at least with the time span right now. The Moore's law is an observation. It's not like a physics or anything theory. So on one side, I'm not quite sure the ratio, but it's also a motivation for the engineers and the people to work harder to reach this level.
That's right. Yeah, so it's not as easy as it used to be.
It's getting harder. We've been saying Moore's law, there's a limit for 20, 30 years, and we keep breaking the limits. But as the lady just pointed out, breaking the limits is getting harder and harder.
Yeah, breaking limits is hard. I mean, if we can't go more, shouldn't we use less? Come on, that's a Unix joke, people.
I think that we're going to, in fact, I think we're at a point where the law is still going to go on. It'll just be in software, because at some point, AI is going to start writing its own shortcut code, if you will. So we're not going to need this huge amount of power and huge amount of hardware because of software itself. Because a lot of the problems that AI is solving are they're resolving and resolving it time after time, and ultimately it's going to create shortcuts, and then the speed comes totally out of software, assuming we don't create something even greater at the molecular level.
Right, I would agree. Yes,
And
improvements in
that's a
software.
real possibility.
I was just going to say, if there are limits, why is the graph accelerating?
Well, I think this graph is meant to show the singularity is coming.
It is curving
Yeah.
upwards, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well.
given that it's a log graph anyway.
Yeah, well, it's
it
less
is actually-
time is, yeah, it is a weird, slightly weird graph. Yeah, the time is coming down to the singularity as the.
Oh no, I meant the
Oh,
one
for
on
Moore's?
the Moore's
Oh,
law
yes.
graph.
Yeah, it's just the graph.
But it's accelerating though, that's the thing.
but
So if we're slowing down, it should be curving the other
Yes, I think maybe that's the wall it's hitting. It just went up and stopped. Maybe that's
So
what they're
you
trying to
ended-
show.
I noticed you ended at, what, 2020?
Yeah.
And so after that, we've had problems.
Yes. Yeah. So this it.
So up until that point, it's been
It was
about
good. The party
limit
stopped in
is-
2020.
Now the limit with distributed parallel, the limit starts to be energy.
Some of the stuff's gone to 3D, which is keeping Moore's law going in some axes.
Yes.
It's interesting at the Hot Chips conference a few weeks back. At the Hot Chips conference a few weeks back, a lot of the slides weren't about the number of transistors on a chip, but how complex the technology is just to keep a data center from melting.
Yes.
All the water cooling and cooling towers and et cetera.
Right. Was Hot Chips here?
Stanford.
Man, missed it. Got to tell us earlier. Hot Chips is a interesting conference. Good one. All right. See, you got some other notes here. Don't want to miss any fun stuff, but we got a lot to talk about. All right. Yeah, we'll go from there. We got it. All right. This is just to kind of set the stage again. All the things we've been thinking about. This is from Wikipedia on generations, kind of when they're born, become useful to society, and retire and move on. We can't really see it here, but you can kind of allude to World War II, and of course now we've got ChatGPT up here, right? So like, who is going to be impacted, right? There were some comments before about, this generation probably wants healthcare, right? So where would you invest your money if you were this generation, right? Versus say someone up, earlier in their career, what would they want to do with technology, whether they're building it, whether they're consuming it. Again, every generation will have their own problems and opportunities.
In 2040, because that's when history stops.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we tried to use the whole screen this time. I actually, again, sorry the slides aren't even, or I wish everything would be better. Of course, I ended up taking a very long detour on what was the generations called prior to all this, and that is its own adventure. So I would say I recommend you do it, but I would also say do something else first. All right, here's our meager AI art. This is just trying to show, again, some of this kind of just technical progression for things that use coding in some aspect, right? So just some time periods. If you kind of try to see like what happened, the punch card had, people say punch card, I think largely without realizing it had a tremendous effect, even up to Unicode, right? And Unicode's everywhere, right? Like it's just, just picking just one dimension of all this. And obviously the precision instrumentation, the controlling of electricity further evolved a lot of these aspects. But at the end of the day, we're encoding power on, power off, and that's really what the story is all about. A lot to look at here. We're not going to go through all this. I just want to show a trend. So there's computing, there's tools, there's techniques. What has been some of the trends? This isn't meant to cover everything. I tried to find interesting things just to kind of noodle over the years. So again, just going back to like the 19th century, mechanical machines, right? Before electricity, more practically at the time, for batteries, really. When batteries, just to throw it, if you haven't studied electricity, I would say that batteries at the period of experimentation is what really jumped the ability to do all the tests with electricity and reproduce those tests and all that. So Volta in Italy, and then them reproducing them in France and Germany and England. Like, it really didn't pick up the pace until batteries were smaller and more capable to reproduce experiments. And because of that, if you don't see it here, but if you go back here, there is a direct impact of the battery leading to computers, which is really, I did not expect. And I used to work in electrical industry, and I still find interesting things like that out there. It's pretty cool stories. Electromechanical, of course, this is now all of a sudden we're putting all these pieces together. Punch card, I already mentioned that. Electronic, we're getting smaller transistors. We're getting control. I would argue control. If anyone's got a better description of IC, please say so. I think it's one thing to make something small. It's another thing to do it at scale, then do it in groups and put them together and reproduce. I'm sure there's better engineering terms for that, but that's kind of what this led into. And then the networking kind of keeps us going for decades. We've celebrated the 50th anniversary of the internet here 2 years ago at the Computer History Museum. That's on the IEEE's website. It's a great event, had a lot of the pioneers of protocol development, hardware development were all there being interviewed. It was a great time. All right, and then of course today, the cloud has a big impact, mobile still has a big impact, and of course AI and quantum. What do we not have on here? Like from a general hardware point of view. I think that's most, but I'm sure.
Devices. Personal mobile devices.
Yeah.
Mobile.
Yeah. What's that?
Game consoles?
Yeah, I mean, more purpose-built, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, gaming got a lot of people interested in tech.
IoT devices?
Yeah, IoT, right? Anybody have numbers on IoT? We up to hundreds of billions, trillions yet of devices. I'm sure there's quite a lot. All right. So yeah, that's the history. And again, if we think about what changed, precision instrumentation, controlling electricity, right? Those two things were maybe the mechanics of how we got here, but then there was still the cultural need for it, right? That led to like tabulating machines, right? The census. We'll see some stuff on that in a moment. All right, another just kind of flow through time. Languages, again, the orange here is kind of the point. So up here with assembly, we're no longer plugging things as much, right? No longer doing assembly, no longer assembled, right? Other features, recursion, garbage collection became a thing, right? We've structured our code, right? Basic, we already saw that was the very first slide, right? Easy to use, of course, time sharing, that also came out of Dartmouth as well. By the way, oh my gosh, I meant to bring the book to just show it to you. If there's a message sent out from this meeting, I'll share it. So at Dartmouth, when they did time sharing, the guy who wrote the book was the dean of Dartmouth there, and he wrote about everything we talked about today, and this was in the 60s. Like, he talked about AI, the problems with society, the technical issue. Like, it literally reads like someone just wrote it today. I'm like, I guess that's why you run Dartmouth and I don't, 80 years ago. But it was absolutely mind-blowing. And I love finding those stories of people who thought of all this stuff before and tried to build this world. And we don't have to read all these, but you can see the programming tools and techniques got better. Frameworks came out and mentioned libraries and things like this, the ecosystems. And now maybe we're going backwards, right? A little bit, right? So we're taking older things and fixing them up, right? With a lot of the current generation of languages. What are we missing here? English?
No, for real. That's your next one. Programming languages
Yeah.
are going to get
LLM.
User interfaces are going to get more complicated. That's what you're seeing already. Who here hasn't done a ChatGPT, create an app that shows me, a calculator app or something like that? That's the input. That's going to replace all these languages.
Yeah.
And then the user interfaces, you won't need to worry about it because they'll be created on the fly.
Right. Yep, great point.
Airline is missing. Airline?
Erlang. Yeah. And what did Erlang give us? Erlang, what was one of the things it gave us?
A distributed computing.
Yeah.
Fault tolerance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's very relevant today. They are probably 30 years ahead of the hardware, multi-core.
Yeah, concurrency, distributed safety, yeah.
Yeah, so related languages will be Elixir with that.
Yeah.
Your version of it. Beam is there, which is there. Again, runs on the virtual machine. That's Erlang Beam.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's
Beam.
And those are more relevant for the AI now.
Oh, I wanted to put more out here for you. Yes.
Yeah,
You?
I mean, that's one line of, you have a list, but list-based languages, so which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, very good. Yes. All right, very good. Yeah, so languages are evolving. All of these languages are actively being worked on today, right? I just taught a class in Kotlin. The last time I taught it was 7 years ago. And in 7 years, they didn't just like add libraries, right? Like a lot of the fundamentals of the language changed. Definitely not what I remembered 7 years ago, right? In a good way. I was actually really impressed. As a job, I was actually hoping to avoid it. I was like, I don't want to do this. It's been 7 years. But I did it, and I'm glad I did. It was very interesting to see the improvements, and I'm sure a lot of that is in other quarters as well. All right, so we saw the computing, the languages. Here we have tools. We start with punch cards and kind of mechanical plug boards. We end up with compilers to control the code. Then we have scheduling concerns. Then we have our end user tools and pipelines of tools, and now automation, again with English, right? So tools are evolving. Let me ask this, again, with the theme of the show, good or bad?
Mostly good.
Good? Why good?
Well,
You're just a positive person?
You can do more. And so you don't see some of the details, but that's why you can do more.
Yeah, right. Abstraction enables. Anybody on the negative team? Yeah, all right, yeah, so through improvements of using and documentation and ease of use, tools have become easier. I'll take the negative, and I'm a positive person. I think I'm positive. I think it's too much. I think, again, if I want my web server to show a picture of a cat, that should be like 10 lines of code and we're out to lunch. But instead, we have to run SBOM pipelines and CI things and all these things to get it out. And I'm not saying that's not good or needed to a point, but I do think we need to go back and simplify it. There's going to be, and I think there's actually it's not just tooling. I think there's fundamental research that needs to happen to dedupe, streamline from creation to deployment. And I mean, it makes sense, like all these, I mean, this is decades of work by lots of different people, lots of different groups, lots of different reasons. Of course it's gonna get big and fragmented, but that doesn't mean we can't go clean it up.
That's not something you do intentionally though. You take the automotive industry, for example, well, like not a huge example, but one example is you used to see cars used to have different systems for cooling, for engine optimization, fuel optimization, whatnot, the different cooling systems, 3 different cooling systems in your car. The new electric cars have a single cooling system because there was kind of like a sea change where they had the opportunity to go back and redesign.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that will not happen no matter how hard you try, if by one CEO saying, hold on, wait a minute, we need to go and remove the cache inefficiencies. That's going to happen when you have a technology jump or some kind of other sea change like that.
I would agree. Very good, thanks.
But it'll happen naturally.
Can't buy our way out of the hole. And I shouldn't complain. Most of my day job is knowing all this, explaining why step 400 didn't work on Tuesday. All right, another kind of slice of life for coding, testing. And again, take it with a grain of salt, but if you could just, ways of describing these things, right? So very manual checks early on, makes sense. We didn't have the tools. We didn't have the scope of people using things, right? So you just did things by hand and you made it work, right? It's not that they weren't thinking of formalization. Clearly they were, but day to day, it's effectively it. And then we switched to, aiming to fix all programming errors as a mentality, right? Fixing all errors leads to failure because you can't fix all errors because there's always more errors.
There's always one more button.
Yeah, and the fix you did will break something else, right? Then we switched to formal. Then we were like, all right, let's go back to formal methods, right? Even though we kind of did that way up here to make sure the machines would work. Let's go back to that. It had its own pros and cons. And if you just kind of go through this, we go through unit testing. Then you have other things influencing testing like shift left or up or down, whatever the marketing term is today, where testing happens. And then, of course, now we have chaos testing and AI assisted testing. And there's other ways to slice and dice this, of course, all the terms of integration testing, unit testing, and all these things that kind of fall in this period of time. So let me ask you this. If you went to a random company and they say they do testing and ask them, well, what percentage of your thing will run correct? Do you think you'll get a reasonable answer?
I mean, what percentage of your tests will pass?
No, of your system working. The point of this is that we prove our system will work. So that it's a proxy, right? It's a proxy. All of our tests pass. If I go use your software, is it really going to work? Right? Like, how would you even tie those two together? Is it just an experience? Like, nobody complained, so it must be correct, right? I don't think so. I don't. There's still a gap, right? I mean, this is good by, I'm not dogging on testing. We need to test. But what I'm saying is we're not done, right? There is no, I'm not aware, please correct me if I'm wrong, I have never seen any company ever have a process where you could actually go and back to the testing and really have some kind of ratio or some number that really alludes to, how good are we versus what we see in the testing output. I don't even know what you would call that. So
Business metrics, KPIs.
Yeah, we're 100%.
No,
Somewhere.
I'm for real. What you're describing here is sort of like, I don't want to shift left, or waterfall model based, to me at least it looks like approach where you do the testing, you preload, front load your testing. Now where it's not just boxed software and products, it's mostly services and it's all connected, there's a bunch of telemetry and you use that telemetry to as an input to the feedback loop. So I would argue there's actually constant testing, and what you said, what fraction of your time does the product work? That's actually all the A/B testing that Google and Fang and everybody's been doing. At least that's what I think it looks like taking a 30,000 foot.
I'd agree. I would agree that it's spirit. I don't know if I agree.
In spirit, thank you.
Like just as a general comment, if you have an app, how many features does your app have?
Too many.
Yeah, too many. You ask a product manager how many features does your app have.
Not enough.
Not enough, or they couldn't give you a number.
Yep.
So how could you possibly test it if you don't have a number? Right? That's my disconnect, is like there's reality and then.
So I think we are testing it, we are measuring. What's
Some of
missing
it.
is the connection back from telemetry to product and engineering.
Yeah.
In some cases. In some cases, I would argue it's already being done.
It's just very, very little production code these days is actually made by the people who put it out. Like everything is based on libraries, frameworks, open source pieces. I mean, if you go to a website, there are hundreds of node components putting together, and they all have to be tested. They all have to be so you're really relying on this ecosystem, and there's no way that you can be sure that whole set of components has actually been well managed, tested, and they also change all the time. So
more work to do.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, very good. Complexity increases.
Yeah, I think it depends on the need. It's very important for the mission critical ones, or shift the hardware, the software along with the hardware to the client side out of your control. Like testing coverage is important, but with software as a service or social media, non-mission criticals, the culture promote, just launch it, break it, and fix it. So it really depends.
Yes.
I think you missed one of the most important ones of all up there, and I think it's because we all take it for granted, but a compiler became a big advancement. I remember when I was a kid, I worked in 2021, something like that. I worked in a large company, and if the program didn't run right, the programmer had to go through the punch cards and figure out where, and in some cases he would print out the program, but in either case it always had to be found by hand versus the compiler, where in the 70s, when we got compilers that actually really do something, it made programming a whole lot easier because your compiler told you it was right or wrong.
Much faster than you could. Yes. All right. Very good. Don't want to get in trouble. All right. Let's see, 2 more of these. All right. We got techniques. Again, this is all slightly opinionated, me trying to pick over time. So if anyone has other observations, please jump in. Again, when computers first came out, who was there to ask, right? Somebody had to be the first, right? So that's kind of where we started. And then ultimately, we see traditional things like waterfall and of course, RUP and Agile, DevOps. And today, I'll just kind of speak about today, which I'm a little more familiar with. one group, I'll just use a specific example. There's a group called the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, of which I'm a pretty active member. And this year's theme is actually not AI, believe it or not. It is platform engineering. And the basic idea is, well, there is no AI without these platforms, right? So we better make sure our platforms are being maintained and can be extended in whatever ways are necessary. So there's kind of been this refocus. There's a variety of tools that have been built to help manage these things. So Crossplane, Backstage, and others. And in that world, it's all Kubernetes, right? If you're unfamiliar with Kubernetes, it's distributed computing platform. Just leave it at that. And so if that's kind of doing distributed scheduling, you deploy a bunch of things, including all your pipelines and security things and just scaling components. There's more to the picture than that, right? So the platform is that, and then talking to the cloud, right? How does, your Kubernetes system may be in the cloud, but then you may actually use a hosted service, right? So prior to the 2020s, that was basically a separate API call, more just kind of low level, like, yeah, I called Amazon to do this or Salesforce to do that. Now, there's higher level constructs that represent those things, that map to the constructs of the platform. So again, just as an example, in the case of Kubernetes, declarative manifests, YAML files, right? Used to be I had to write a REST call to do something. Now I don't do that. Now I write YAML to say, go spin up a VM that looks like this, goodbye, get back to me with the IP address, right? So it's not, I wouldn't say it's earth-shattering. I would argue that it's just, okay, we got something that's kind of working. Now let's go back and see if we can clean it all up to really make this thing last a long time. Because on the flip of that, there is no current, at least I don't see it yet, replacement for this kind of stack, right? And so I'm not saying it's good or bad, but there have been other distributed systems in the past, and none of them are as popular, and I don't see anything.
I just wanted to comment. You said it's no big deal, going from procedural programming to declarative with just a YAML file, saying it's no big deal. I think when you look at the logical next step, which is adding AI on top of that, and instead of a YAML file, having an English file or
description,
actually makes it a pretty big step.
Yeah. Semantic analysis is going to become way more of a thing very soon. So yeah, the correctness of interfacing all these systems, and we have syntactical analysis, which allows you to do things pretty concretely, like is this what it says it is, and but how do you do semantic analysis, right? In the case of, does this YAML actually do what I would have done imperatively? I don't know. Like, I didn't write it. So yeah.
Moving from context-free languages to control tools and automation to context-full human language.
Yes, good point. Yeah, anyone have any other kind of techniques in mind? There's other work down in this realm to kind of simplify Agile. Team, oh my gosh, what is it called? I think I took a note on it. No, maybe I did. Team training, I think is what it's called. There's like I'll have to look it up maybe at the end. There's again, people are actively working on the process of building teams, like how do you organize the teams to, so basically like DevOps, tear down the wall, put, one person could do it all, or have a team do it all. Now with the new, again, it's not necessarily everywhere, but the new kind of look is we make long-running teams that own a service start to finish. No more like handing it off to the people like it's you. Get with it, right? So that's kind of what's kind of shaping now. And again, that'll impact tools along the way. All right, just to get to the formal part, again, this is my probably weakest part, but I tried to put something together. There's evolution of tools and techniques and all these things, but this is just trying to kind of, riff on one of the areas of decidability. All right, so anyone speak German? Come on, don't make me say it. Einstein's problem. That's so much better. You waited till I started, but thank you. Thank you. You wanted it on record. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we got, up here in the 1670s, already starting creating machines, right? The point being here is created a calculator. But then to go beyond that, he knew to have correctness in other operations, he needed some way to formalize that. And so he decided to create a formal language of proofs to describe mathematical statements. So work, again, this is well before our friend Babbage, right? And Raman null was what, 1350? Basically doing the same thing, right? So to me, it's almost crazy. What we think started just a couple of years started well before that. And that's just what we know about, right? Like there could have been things elsewhere we just lost the time. In more recent times though, this got kind of reformulated. And this is maybe just something for us to think about. So Hilbert's kind of categorized like problems in math that should be solved. And one of them is all problems have answers, right? He believed everything could be solved basically. Just get off your butt and try to figure it out. Of course, unfortunate to him, the computer team, well, maybe Kurt's not, but we'll take him on our team. The computer team came in and said, no, man, you're wrong, right? So the first nail in Hilbert's not all problems can be solved was the incompleteness theorem. And then the Church-Turing thesis came along and was the second nail in the coffin that not all things could be solved per that. All right, so I'm not going to explain. I'll do a bad job explaining what that really means. There's great books on this kinds of things. More recently, what that led to is things like Rice's theorem. So this is 1951. And so any non-trivial semantic property is undecidable. So talking about aspects of your code and the state of your code, turns out though, there is subsets that can be solved. And again, I'm doing a horrible job of this. If anyone here is an expert in this, please stand up. The subsets of things like type inference, like types in Python to prevent certain errors, right? That stuff has, we'll just say math behind it to have proofs, correctness proofs around it, right? So there's more generic ones, Hoare logic, there's model checking. This stuff has led to, with this paper in 1976, which in 2007, these gentlemen won the Turing Award for this work on basically taking this and applying it to hardware verification, right? So it just leveled it up. We now have tools to actually tell aspects of our code, is it correct? And so what does that actually mean? Well, here's some examples of it. So we're not going to read through all this, but you can read it later. In short, a variety of tools have been built to do aspects of, we'll just say, formal correctness proving. And this is just a kind of layman's example of what that might mean. Probably, hopefully those are correct. Try to find examples. Who would use such a thing? So some examples I have here in my notes. One, of course, is TCP. Right? You have the state machines, and you want to prove they're right based on transitions in the states. So TCP has been proven correct in various aspects of it decades ago, right? And that was pretty critical because we're going to build the whole world's internet on it. We want to make sure it's correct. A more recent one that I dug up was gRPC. So again, ignoring the protobufs aspect of it, there's a state that goes along with that model, request response, RPC style model. These tools can help prove things about it are correct. So interestingly enough, where does this lead us now? There's been, again, if you're an expert in this, you probably already ignore it, but there is a, we'll say, amateur level push. Can we use these tools or thoughts to prove anything about LLMs, right? So it's the system of the LLM itself, but then there's also just the interaction, right? The request and the response of your chat. Can we do anything with this stuff or this technology to prove out anything about an LLM. So at this point, the answer is no. And that's the short answer. The reason is no. And again, I'll leave this to you to go look it up. So if we go back a slide, it's because of Rice's theorem. Right, this is basically what's quoted as saying why you will not use these tools to prove out reasoning in LLMs. But again, can you do a subset of things, like just maybe a request response chat in a limited form? Maybe there is something there. But right now, because it's natural language, semantic analysis, in my layman's research here, is not really there yet. Okay. Switching gears. All right, so we saw some history of tech. I want to mention this book. So I've read a lot of books on energy. I have more books on energy than I care to admit. This is probably one of the better ones. And so this is kind of a history of civilization and its compaction and control of energy, right? So talks about, of course, usages like, well, digging out coal to controlling agricultural implementations, right? And ultimately, by taking what's large and unwieldy and focusing it, we can do things. And this just got me thinking, like in the case of knowledge, this is actually what kicked off me even doing this talk to even begin with, is could we explain what is happening with AI and LLMs? For me, as a generic kind of ideas, there's just facts, right? We can use Google and get facts. You read a book, go to Encyclopedia Britannica. But then what do you do with those facts, right? David, what's your term? Knowledge, you got a good way of saying this. You got facts, knowledge, like the transition to processes.
Well, I was talking about the evolution from, where we've gone is from time to data, understanding and retroactively, understanding what the data is telling us. That was what we call business intelligence. We would make reactive decisions off that. We've evolved to artificial intelligence, which is largely interpreting that data for us, so summarizing it so that we can get quicker. We take those summaries, we oversee it as humans, and then we take action based on what those interpretations are. And then we're evolving to agentic systems, where now the time to action is increasingly shortening, and those systems are interpreting and then taking action on how it interprets, and then humans are just overseeing that process.
Thank you. See, you got a career beyond videographer. You got this. Thank you. But yeah, for me, that's what I was interested in, is like there's this consolidation of knowledge that's happening, and then that leads to just not facts, it's processes on top of that. And then, of course, the automation through agentics and things like that. And so I tried to visualize what's going on here, see if there's any trends we might be able to figure out. This is me and ChatGPT trying to do some bad pie plot, but we tried. Kind of what it's showing is there's electricity, harnessing of electricity, which is this yellow line. Again, it's probably even more up than would allude here. There is the consumption of data, right? So digital data, paper data, right? This is paper data, right? This line here. So again, prior to the printing press, how did you get information? Like you go to a cafe or whatever, work out in the field all day, talking to your buddy. Like there's ways to get information, but ultimately I think the printing press really grabs a certain amount of knowledge, makes it available. And a lot of these other parts are just random kind of technical events, mathematical events that have happened. And you could see, again, I'm looking to see for trends. I didn't really know what I would find, but you can see there's a kind of a mesh of activity here, right? And it could just mean that I missed things here, right? Who knows? There's more to be done here. But I did spare a fair amount of time trying to be what do people think is important in energy, in knowledge, in tech. And this is kind of what it came up with. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe you'll find it interesting, or maybe you won't. I will say, what did I get out of this? I still think to the point of knowledge and processes being, anyone now could use an LLM to learn something they probably couldn't easily learn before. And I'm not saying it's right, it doesn't do everything, but being optimistic here. I'm gonna do my taxes. I mean, I do my taxes, but say I never did my taxes. I can get a very quick start, like, how do I file taxes? And it tells me, and it's mostly right? Mostly. But even if I'm an accountant, accountants get it wrong too, right? So I mean, who's the blame there? If I want to learn biology, right? I can get a good jump start. Give me something to read. Give me this. Like, it's faster than if you just had an encyclopedia. Go to biology. Look, I could read it start to finish. It may have some suggestions. It's not that it's not useful. I love Encyclopedia Britannica. But in fact, there was a set for sale in Santa Cruz a couple months ago. I was with my family, and I was like, I'm going to buy it. It's just sitting there. And it was missing whatever, W, right? And my wife's like, no. If it had all of it, then yes. And I'm like, no, like, can't we just print a fake or eBay the other one? She's like, no, it's not going to look right. I'm like, come on. All right. Again, the premise of all this is we're getting faster access to not just the facts, but the relations of facts. And I think that's to me, what's really the benefit of tech today. I can now jump around things much faster than I've ever been able to before. And I think I'm pretty good at multitasking. So this here, again, this is just kind of a riff on like the evolution of storage of data. And if you think about processes, like, well, how would I get information out of these things? Stumbling on all this, I came across this, which I thought was super, I don't know why it's interesting to me. Maybe I'm just me. Who is this? Right, who's Holler? What do you do?
Census. The census.
Yeah. And what was the big deal there?
Well, with the prior method, it would take more than 10 years to do the census they do every 10 years.
Yeah, so we would never catch up. That's right. Who's this? That's his great-grandson. He's the dean of the cathedral in DC, the National Cathedral. And I don't know, just kind of like go from like the pinnacle, like lead into tech. And I'm not saying anything good or bad here, just, I don't know. I thought it was an interesting dichotomy, just a random thing. That's the power of Wikipedia, is that you just click on things and you never know.
So what's that, 80 years? You went from crunch the numbers to have faith in them.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. All right. I had a couple more slides, but I actually, I know we're getting out of time here, so let me just kind of jump to the end here. Here's just a tactical one. Just wanted to share in case someone, speaking of knowledge, maybe you haven't heard of shadow libraries. So check them out. These are big deposits of knowledge, stories. The reason I brought this up is because a lot of the lawsuits you hear going on LLMs is because they trained on these. And these weren't meant to be used. Right? There's like licensing that says you are not allowed to like access these things like they're meant to be dark. Right? So anyway, but you can go check them out. So anyway, I just thought that was just kind of interesting that like, oh, there's these things holding knowledge, yet you can't use it, right? So I'm like, what? So there's more to that story. I thought that's just one that's been in the news recently. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, so I'll just wrap this. I think we'll have a couple minutes. Makar is here. Have a small demo on some of the new tech that Makar, I would like him to show if you mind entertaining us for a moment, but just to kind of wrap this part up. Again, I mentioned with the Internet Society, if you couldn't tell, also with other groups, the ACM, IEEE. Please just check out, we have events, check out these groups. There's a lot of many of you are members already, but for those who are not, we have many meetups. We have a lot of like-minded conversations. There's a lot of people interested in the history and what's going to be the future. believe it or not, there's people who are proactively trying to influence things, not just, I mean, it's great to go learn tech. It's another thing to get it out in society. There are people trying to get it out and get it in a good position. So please, they're not the only groups, mind you, but we're with them, and we want people to join. Okay. This is a talk I gave on Tuesday at the Computer History Museum. I'm only pointing this here because this is focused on cloud native tech, what's been going on for the last couple of years, and what our projection is for the next few months, what we think is going to happen. Again, when I was talking about platform engineering and things like that, I can talk about that because I do spend a lot of time in this space. I'm one of the leads in the AI group there at the CNCF. So we see all the projects and what they're doing, and I review lots of submissions to conferences. So I see what people are working on, right? And I can see the trends. And again, platform engineering just in support of AI, building these systems is super important. Next week is, again, just because I know about it, I'll be speaking at this. This one's online. It's free. You can sit at home and heckle all you want. This is actually, I think, kind of cool. This conference is a 24-hour conference, and it's basically chasing the sun. There's speakers in like every kind of time zone, and I happen to be ours with one more speaker. So I will be waxing poetic on the future of AI for the next 25 years, from starting 3 years ago. And that's it. So thank you very much for coming to the talk. And if you have a few minutes to stick around and see maybe the future of coding support, Makar, please introduce yourself. And
can I connect to the screen?
Yes, you can. Is that a Windows machine? Oh, good. Had me worried. Yeah, I was like, Windows? Is it even going to turn on? Yeah, so here's this. Oh, sorry. Catherine, Professor Catherine Funk has brought a punch card. While you set up, am I allowed to touch it? Can I pass it around, or if you've never seen one, I know some of you have, but if you haven't, please. Actually, believe it or not, because I'm horrible at this, I wanted to make this way more interactive. I wanted us to all loom together, shoot each other with tasers to feel on and off electricity, like everything. I tried to buy punch cards. There's nobody selling them. Like, I had so many problems. Shiny object syndrome, I just couldn't pull it together. So I built this instead one night. This took me hours, and it kind of works. It's just a big QR code. I was like, oh, how hard could it be? We'll all learn how to do QR to show, like, the point being is this is analog that does something in the digital world, right? That you could still do with your hands, right?
This is what it thought it was.
Oh, man. It's supposed to go to the Huddle's website, is what it's supposed to do. But anyway, it was fun. My cat kept helping, which was, I thought was the doom. It was going to end that. But yeah, I was hoping we'd all have time to do it. But then it took me hours, and I realized this was not going to happen. So anyway, please introduce yourself. And by the way, we have met through the Founders Inc. Yeah, Founders. Yeah, I was thinking there's another word there. So Founders Inc. is, correct me if I'm wrong, a VC that's at least operating out of Fort Mason and other places. But we go to events and try to look at like promising efforts ourselves, just to keep, I like to know what's going on in the world. And came across this fine gentleman here who is going to tell us about himself, about his technology. I think this is great. You're going to see that it's not just all building websites and this and that. You're going to see some cool tech. So thank you Makar, for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to come here. Amazing talk, by the way. So my name is Makar. We met with Ronald through Founders Inc. And I'm building basically AI agents to write highly optimized code for specific hardware. So basically finding the most high-performance solution for a specific functionality or for a specific algorithm, depending on specific system you have. So basically how it works is the idea that right now coding agents don't have any context on your specific system. They just trained on a bunch of data, and they output basically a statistical average for a specific prompt that you ask with some level of randomness. And this, the idea that we are pursuing is basically finding the most optimal solution for a specific hardware. So using profiling tools to investigate the initial solution that LM outputs, and then iteratively improving it until basically the most optimal solution have been found. If you heard recently, Google published like 2 months ago Alpha Evolve paper. So they basically were able to find an improvement to their matrix multiplication algorithm using similar approach, basically iteratively trying different like ILM outputs and profiling that on their GPU hardware, and they've been able to like find an improvement to their already highly optimized matrix multiplication. And they also optimized, I think, one of the things on the cloud system by 1%, even though it was already quite optimized. So we're trying to do that, but for general software. And today I will show you a demo of optimizing basically search string functionality from imhex, which is just an open source. It's basically open source hex editor, quite popular. So I just took it from GitHub, and I'll be showing you real life code that there's always something to optimize. And using LLMs, we can do this kind of things on scale and finding the most optimal solution. The general idea is that, as we saw today, as the Moore's law basically dies out, we must seek improvements in computation, not through transistor scaling, which is not possible anymore, but through different things, such as like distributed systems. Or one of the things is optimizing software for hardware. And this area, it's basically kind of overlooked in general software engineering at the moment, because companies mostly prioritize new features besides optimizations. But as we have these LLM models, outputting code becomes a commodity. And so like 2 things intercept. First, we have these LLMs, and second, the hardware slows down. So optimizations will become more and more important. And we're trying to teach LLMs how to do high-performance code. So let me show you.
Do you want me to hold the mic? I'll hold it while you.
Yeah. So basically, I've already set it up. Yeah,
One more card.
Like dedicated server where we run like all the where we run like all the profiling tools to basically minimize noise. So I just SSH into it. Yeah. So I can show you. I set it up. A little slow because the internet. I'm just hotspotting it now. I don't know. It's really slow. So I just set up the imhex to investigate the search string functionality, and we can run it and see the results. It usually takes like a couple minutes when we investigate specific functionality within a large project. It takes a couple minutes first to profile the whole application, basically find out which specific functions are the most hot on the CPU, so take the most time. Then basically isolate the specific functions and run more precise profiling on the hardware level. So it takes a couple minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes for each run. It depends on the size of the project, depends how fast like profiling tools work. So I already ran one time like 20 minutes ago, and I'll show you what it outputs. Like I'll run this. And let's see. Oh, yeah. Wait. I didn't set up on this. Wait. I don't want you to see my LLM key. But I'll set it up right now. 1 second. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we see squaring for different stuff, and then let's switch here. So this is the run I ran like today, so like an hour ago, 20 minutes ago. So basically, let's see the benchmark result. Yeah, so basically what it did, it created like a micro bench for this specific functionality that can be measured and that can be repeatable, so LLMs can try different experiments. And it created some like mock data to run this on that simulates what would be the real data within the bigger project, so you can intercept the data through like what a human would do with a debugger, so kind of similar stuff. And so the original runtime was 0.7 seconds on this data. And then it ran a bunch of optimizations. So basically, all the optimization can be split into two things. First is basically not doing redundant work. So that's on the algorithmic side of the implementation, basically finding the best way to implement some algorithm without doing any redundant work. Second is on the hardware side. So taking specific implementation of hardware into consideration, such as, for example, you have a cache size on one machine and another, it differs. If you run the same application on one machine, the program might be compute bound, on the other might be memory bound. So basically all these kind of considerations also can be used to optimize the specific code for hardware. So in this case, there were some problems. So there was improvements through basically minimizing the redundant work being done, and through the compiler wasn't able to vectorize everything, but after we kind of helped compiler by rewriting some parts of the source code, it was able to vectorize more and reduce runtime even further. So we can see specific code. And we can see specific optimization the LLM did. Basically, okay. So for this specific case, basically, how it was implemented in AmHex, the program just went byte by byte, and for each byte, it basically tried to find out what is it? Is it a number? Is it uppercase, lowercase? And that was using just functions from standard C++ library. So what our LLM found out through profiling, again, which couldn't be just seen through source code, is that basically these calls to standard library took a considerable amount of time compared to the rest of the logic. So what it did, it basically replaced these standard calls with just lookups, like a lookup table, and they actually save a lot of time. And that was like the part of like algorithmic optimization, what it's called. And second stuff, it unrolled some of the loops. So compilers are generally pretty good at unrolling, but there's some caveats to this. So for example, if there's a dependency chain within the large program, compilers cannot do anything with it, but we as programmers, we can basically break the dependency chain into two subchains, and then this would reduce a significant amount of runtime because the compilers can just interleave those two in parallel slots of CPU. So this same stuff can be done by LLM automatically, and the beautiful thing is it can run a lot of these experiments and find the best hyperparameters. For example, the best number of subchains to break this one into, which would take a lot of time for human developer to run the profile and then try different stuff again. So that's the beauty of it. And as we see, like that some real world results can be achieved. This is just some code from like open source from GitHub. And the general idea is that in the future, hopefully like every piece of software will be optimized to specific hardware, and then we will not be able to suffer from any like software freezes, and compute would be just abundant. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Well done. Hey, David, still here? Okay. All right, well, that brings us to the end, everybody. Thank you for participating, and thank you for staying. From Makar, is this for sale?
So we're working with a couple companies right now. It's not something you can download. So with companies, we basically built it into their CI systems. But if you're interested in chatting more, go talk to me. Also, you can visit our website. It's called funkshow.ai. Or just shoot me an email. Just go talk to me right now. Yeah.
Very good. Don't be a stranger. All right. Thank you, Professor Catherine, for bringing the excellent technology back there.
So this is the Turing machine, the Turing card.
Oh.
Yeah, this is very historical. And this one is a punch card. This one.
Excellent.
With the large language model, you can take a picture and put in and tell you what's the meaning for it.
We've come full circle. Awesome.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have some drinks, food, and have fun, and don't be a stranger, and hopefully we'll see you again. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks. This was late.
No worries.
So how often do you